It can get lonely climbing Mount McKinley, so to entertain myself, I go to ChumbaCasino.com. At Chumba Casino, I can play hundreds of online casino-style games for free, like online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Plus, I get a daily login bonus. It's just too bad that up here, I don't have anyone to share my excitement with. Woohoo!
Live the Chumba life. Anytime, anywhere. Play for free now at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening and welcome to WSBI, your Resource for Success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, President and CEO of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author. Welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have Kimberly Spencer. Kimberly Spencer is an award-winning, high-performance, drama-informed coach and trainer, Amazon best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and the founder of crownyourself.com, helping visionaries, leaders transform their self-limiting stories, build their empire, stand out fearlessly, and make the income and the impact they deserve. From her entrepreneurial beginnings at 5, selling bags of glitter water to her neighbors, to becoming an award-winning screenwriter, certified Pilates instructor, Miss Congeniality, and 6-time WEGO Health Activist Award nominee, Kimberly is proof that it's better to make your own mold than to conform to someone else's. She's also the former executive of a national e-commerce startup and was the owner of the private Pilates studio, Fitness with Kim, in Los Angeles, California. Her work has been featured on Netflix, the CW, ESPN, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and NPR, and in Thrive Global, CNBC, and Forbes. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Miss Kimberly Spencer. Hey, Kim, how are you?
Thanks so much for having me on, Kimberly.
You're welcome. I just love it. Like saying earlier, Kimberly and Kimberly, you know, the best name, right?
Dynamic duo. It means leader.
Exactly. I love it. I'm just excited about having you on tonight. And after reading that bio, I cannot wait to hear about the beginnings of the glitter water and everything since then. So yes, it's just exciting to have you on. So Kim, before we get started with all this great conversation, just please tell my listeners a little bit more about who Kimberly Spencer really is.
So I was blessed to grow up with 2 entrepreneur parents, and I really was raised with a very different mindset where I just see business opportunities, thus the glitter water at 5. And so I grew up wanting to make a certain level of income and impact. And because I was growing up in Los Angeles, I thought the only way that I could do that was through Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And so I had set my sights on becoming a screenwriter and an actor, and basically the female Clint Eastwood. And I had the opportunity to write a few screenplays. My first feature film got produced and distributed by Lionsgate and on Netflix. And when I was at the premiere, I had this strange feeling of only being about 90% fulfilled, not 100%. And I was like, this is interesting. This is a lifelong dream. Right. Well, to support my career in entertainment, I had taken up teaching Pilates for a few years, and I loved doing it. It was super helpful with my own recovery from a 10-year battle with bulimia, and it transformed my body, transformed how I processed information, how I led, and I loved the fitness side of it as well. And so while I was writing my first screenplay, I was teaching Pilates, and then once that film got produced, I had, within just a couple months, I had the opportunity to come on as a consultant for a new startup that was launching a product into market that was for a back stretching device. And so I took a look at the product and I saw it and I saw the value of it. And I said, I don't want to just be a consultant, I want to be a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And because I saw how powerful it could be. And so I was the president of an e-commerce company for 2 years. We took that product to market. We made so many mistakes and also had many successes. Like we got just being able to see your product and your company featured in Times Square. And I got to pitch the product to the first round of Shark Tank auditions. And,
oh, wow.
But then within 2 years, my business partner and I were having some just difference of opinions and some struggles. And he wanted to buy me out, and I was brokenhearted. And I'd always been very audacious with my career in the past. And whenever I'd wanted to do something, I'd say, I don't just want to be a partner. I don't just want to be a consultant. I want to be a partner. And I don't just want to be a location scout for my film. I want to write it when I was presented with that opportunity. So I'd always been very audacious. And it wasn't until I was faced with buyout attorneys and lawyers who don't always send you the nicest emails when they're not working for you.
That is true.
That I ever had my own perceptions of my ability come into question. Suddenly all of these insecurities that I'd had as a woman, as a young woman, I was only 28, as a young woman in business, very girly, suddenly all of these fears were being brought to light by men who were quote unquote professionals. And I started to doubt myself. And so I was bought out 3 weeks before I got married, went off on my honeymoon with my husband, spent 6 beautiful weeks in Italy. And while we were on an Airbnb on the coast of Italy, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get back.
Wow.
And I mean, I had poured 2 years of my life and energy and time into that business, and I had no idea what I was going to do. So my husband and I were brainstorming, as you do on your honeymoon.
Right.
And
the most important thing to do on the honeymoon, of course.
Right? Figure out your future.
Right.
And so we were having way too many espressos, and I was thinking of all of the things that I loved. I loved teaching Pilates. I loved the leadership. I loved fitness. I loved health. I loved writing. I loved stories. I loved the power of filmmaking, the power of just being able to tell a story. And I loved business. And I'd been able to figure out successfully the body, the relationships, and the business. And I thought, success is this holistic picture for me. And I think so often when we're going for any goal, we can lose sight of that everything is working in harmony, especially if we get very linearly focused. And I thought, I wanted to combine all of these interests into one holistic picture that helps women create a body, business, and life that rules. And I leaped off the couch after way too many espressos, and I said, "Crown yourself." And my husband's like, "What's that?" And I said, "I have no idea, but that's the name of my company."
I love it. I love it.
And I was audacious with going forward in what I call now productive procrastination, where as a business owner for a year and a half, I did lots of really fun things like buying a website domain and hiring a web designer and getting my website built and, posting some social media and blogging. And for a year and a half, I made absolutely jack diddly squat $0 in my business.
I'm laughing because I can't wait for you to finish so we can have this conversation, but go ahead.
Yeah. So
oh my gosh.
I found out I was pregnant, and that was when I was like, what am I doing? Like this business, if I'm going to, raise a child and say that they can do anything that they want in this world, then I better dang well be living that. And I knew I was living from a space of fear. And that was when I immediately hired my first coach. I got certified in timeline therapy, NLP, and hypnosis because I knew that this problem that I was having had nothing to do with my business or the concept or, me. It had to do with my mindset specifically as a leader. And once I got that sorted out, and once and I knew it was a mindset piece because I knew the similar strategies that I had been applying were very familiar to me because they were the same sort of doubtful, negative self-sabotage habits that I had had when I was bulimic. And so I knew it was a mindset piece. I knew I could shift it because I'd recovered from bulimia with no psychological or medical intervention. So I knew I could transform my mindset. I just knew I had a 9-month deadline, so I got some support. Because I had to give birth in 9 months, and so I knew I wanted to build some traction before then. Right. And after going through those certifications and having a coach, I was able to shift my mindset to where I started actually putting myself out there, started actually making sales, bringing in profit into my business. And then it's just grown for the past 5 years. And I've worked with some extraordinary leaders and founders of companies and entrepreneurs over the past 5 years who have just gone on to do awesome things, including, having business success, but also reconnecting with their estranged children and then bringing them into the business, and buying a plane that was their childhood dream, or going off and ditching partners that were no longer aligned, and then going on to scale their businesses to $3-4 million.
Wow. I'm just loving your story because there's several things that stood out to me. Well, first of all, the fact that you were, fortunate to have parents that were entrepreneurs, and I think that is a blessing because that was your first change of mindset. That, a lot of times as we're growing up, we always hear usually the same thing, go to school, get a great education and get a great job, right? And it's not always that you hear, it's fine to go to school. Nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. But it's like, what are you going to do with that education when you come out, or do you feel like you need to have to go get a job? Can you start a business? We don't always hear or have those conversations. And a big part of it, obviously, as we know, is that everybody's into business. But, those opportunities are there and we don't hear enough of them. So you have all these hundreds and thousands of people running around with these degrees, but with no job. But then they have all these millions of dollars they have to pay back. So,
Yeah, it hurts. I mean, I got a significant education in the School of Hard Knocks, and it was actually my mom who was encouraging me in high school because I was struggling with so much depression and I was still a type A perfectionist, that she was actually encouraging me to drop out. And she said, I know you're going to be successful in whatever it is that you do, and you're a hustler and you'll make things work. She goes, I don't think you need to get straight A's in AP in biology and chemistry to do that. That has nothing to do with where you want your path to go. And so that was really a powerful conversation in terms of
step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
Imagínate escuchar tu canción favorita como si fuera la primera vez. Te presentamos el totalmente nuevo y reimaginado Nissan Kicks con sonido Bose Personal Plus y bocinas en la parte superior de los asientos para crear una experiencia 360. Jamás has escuchado algo así. Reimagina tu música y tu forma de manejar. Descubre el totalmente nuevo y reimaginado Nissan Kicks en nissanusa.com. Función disponible. Bose es una marca registrada de The Bose Corporation.
Teaching me the power of priorities and the power of of asking, what am I really doing this for? And I actually dropped out of college 2 weeks before I was supposed to start because even with 2 scholarships, because I found an acting school that I just loved, that I knew would be very healing for me, with some of the trauma that I had grown up with as a child. Because even though I grew up with 2 entrepreneur parents, my dad was an addict for all of my life. And so basically one of my incentives to building a business, I'm like, well, if they could build a multi-million-dollar company with constantly, having this beast of an addiction going on, can I do in 5 years or 10 years if they can do that in 30? So that was a perception shift. I'm like, if you could build a multi-million-dollar business drunk, it's possible. So it really showed me that there was possibility. And I'm also one of those weirdos who can totally find a silver lining in pretty much everything.
Yeah, but when you think about it, you're right. It's like to think that the thought pattern of what they were doing, they were continually striving and doing well, but there was that one piece that probably if they didn't have that scenario of addiction, that they probably could even went further. So when you think about what you've seen and what you've been around, and like I said, that I'm sure that trauma of knowing that, is this really the way I have to be in order to be successful? Do I have to be, drinking every night? Do I have to do this, do that in order to maintain myself? I can imagine as a child what that would be like, like I say, even though your parents were very successful and I love the fact that they pushed you into doing and saying to you, hey, do whatever you want to do. It's great. You don't have to be going to college, and because there's a lot of parents that will fight that 100%. But we all know the reality is that, have an education is the hard knocks of the streets, and being and learning and having those opportunities to really see what it means to make it out here. Because there are so many opportunities. We just don't really know sometimes what those opportunities are and how to use our passions appropriately. And you learn that along the way.
Yeah, it really came from following my curiosity and allowing myself to be guided by that, and rather than the shoulds of what other people said I should be doing, because I've seen every client over the past 5 years, I've always asked them, what did you learn the most from sitting in a classroom, an online course, a coach, or experience? Hands down, every time, 100% of the time, experience. Yeah. No matter, the coaches that you hire, the courses that you take, those are all great as supplemental, but you got to put it into practice, and you got to have the courage to take action and have the courage to make those audacious asks and to put yourself out there and to face all of those fears that our ego loves, of the fears of rejection and the fears of judgment, and still face those on a daily basis and choose consciously to conquer them, to go for what you really want to create.
Right. And that is true, and that's no different than with our jobs. When you go and you get a job, and the first thing that people look at is what? Your experience. It's like, do you have an experience? Well, then you get those ones that tell you, well, you're either overqualified or you're not qualified. Well, how are you going to be qualified if you don't have the experience? So it's everything that we do in life is all about getting and gaining that experience so that we can be better at what we're accomplishing. And it's great, like you said, to sit down and read as many books as you want to read, or just follow the coaches that you're dealing with. And there's nothing wrong with it, because we all are coaches in our own right, because that's how people learn. We all learn from each other. But if you don't have the opportunity to use what you've learned, you will constantly be stagnant in life. So, telling and hearing your story, I think, is great, because I don't get too many people on my shows who really talk about the fact that, hey, I dropped out of school. I didn't want to go. I moved on, and I'm living my life the way I want to. We always usually hear the opposite direction. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with getting an education. I think education is great. It's just depending on what are you using that education for? What is your purpose? Why are you going in that direction? Have you really sat down and thought about that? And it takes a hell of an individual to sit down and say, this is not what I want to do, and the thought process of not wasting time or money, and not that you're wasting time, but to sit down and say, hey, I'm sitting in a classroom and I'm spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But what am I going to get after that, after going and sitting in that classroom? I think that's an important thing to sit back and look at. So here you are, you've gone through school. You didn't go through school. You say, I'm not doing this. I'm going to move on and do something I want to do. But I want to hear more about the screenwriting. Now, you had the love and the passion of writing a film. So can you tell me the film that it was that you got accepted to Netflix? Yeah,
it's a film called Bro. It stars Danny Trejo, and it was about the high-flying, hard-partying world of freestyle motocross and a young kid who wants to fit in with the cool crowd. And I still have yet to ever be on a motocross bike. My husband now won't let me now that we have kids. He's like, there's no way you're getting on a motorcycle for the next 18 years. He said, after that, you do as you like. But as long as we got these kids, you cannot.
Right. It's like never. And how did you come up with that idea? I mean, especially not doing something like that.
Yeah, so the director was a friend of mine who I had met through a networking. So just like any other business, Hollywood, it's called show business for a reason. Mm-hmm. And so I'd met him through networking, and we'd stayed in touch. And he wanted to film this film in the town that I grew up in Burbank, California. And he said, would you come on as an associate producer and like do location scouting and whatnot? And I said, well, what's the script? And he said, oh, we don't have one. I said, I heard his concept of it wanting to be more of an improv thing. And I said, I think we might need a script if we're going to do this. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, write 10 pages and let's pass it off to the executive producer. And, because basically he pitched me the idea of this bro culture, and I dated some bros, and it was basically the story of a young kid who wants to fit in with the cool crowd, and we've all had that experience. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote 10 pages, passed it off to the executive producer. Within a couple of days, I got the feedback of, how do you know men so well? And the scene was, it was 3 guys walking into a strip club. I'm like, it's really not that hard to know what's going on in their minds. I am sorry, that's not rocket science.
Right.
And so they said, yeah, why don't you take a pass at writing it? And so I ended up co-writing it with the director. I started out with the first draft, and then at about draft 4 or 5, we had an opportunity from Metal Militia to come on for branding. And they said that they would provide all the branding, wardrobe, etc. for the film if we just incorporated motocross in it. So I get the call as I'm walking into the gym, and my director's like, how much do you know about motocross? I was like, there's YouTube. So I within 2 weeks, I learned about all the different types of motocross things and incorporated into the film so that we could get the branding and mm-hmm. the additional clout having Metal Militia a part of it. And that, it was, and what was so interesting, because I do believe in such divine interventions, like had I not written a motocross movie, I would never have met this extraordinary child in the children's hospital when I was doing some charity work through a pageant that I was in. Mm-hmm. And because I did beauty pageants, I've always loved beauty pageants. Those are my people. And
I can see why you got Miss Congeniality too, okay?
They want to change the world. They want to do good. They want to excel in their high achievements. I'm like, and they want to look good doing it. I'm like, okay, you guys are my people. And so I was doing some charity work, and I hear this kid in the hospital say, like, bragging about how he's a motocross rider. And this is like 8-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. And it was years after the film had come out, and he was sharing all of this. And I was like, and he was in the cancer ward, and I was like, oh, you like motocross? And so I mentioned, I said, oh, yeah, I wrote this film called Bro. And his mom's like, no way, that's my favorite movie. And I was like, really? That is? And I never would have had the connections to be able to connect him to that world had I not written that film. So, like, I just so believe in divine interventions and the divine path of being able to, and that all came from following my curiosity mm-hmm. and from just allowing myself to be guided, which was what guided me into creating Crown Yourself and creating the business that I have now.
Right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And that's the beauty about it. Just taking and just living life, and like you said, and knowing people and learning from them and realizing that, we have all these great connections. That's the thing, what you said earlier, that you have this great connection with men. And that's an amazing thing, even though obviously you went through some trauma, dealing with getting this startup going, and then all of a sudden you're no longer a part of the startup, but all these connections that you've made has made you not just who you are, but you've gone so far into helping other people realize that if you're utilizing and who you are and your connections and the people and everything that you do in surrounding your life, it can really move you in ways that you never thought it could. So talk a little bit about some of the things that you deal with individuals that you help out, because you help them stand out. You say fearlessly, you help them build their empire. So talk a little bit about how you do that.
So a lot of the individuals that I work with, they've had some level of success in either another industry or a past business. And I work with a ton of Gen Xers who they're still building, but there might have been some like jadedness from, past failures or past experiences. And a lot of times when we've had a success in a past industry or a past business, and maybe that didn't work out or something pivoted or something shifted, we can hold ourselves to that standard of the success that we remember, and we struggle with being a student again and starting over. And I call it the pedestal problem. So that's one of the problems that I work on with my clients, is when they put their old identity, their old self, maybe it's their fitter version of themselves, maybe it's their richer version of themselves, maybe it's their married version of themselves, and now they're not. But putting that old version of themselves up on a pedestal and trying to then build their own new pedestal to put themselves on, and it doesn't work. So what I work with them is removing that old identity from being good, better, best, the only way that it could happen, because the past is really great for informing decisions, and it's really awful for informing decisions, because when you start applying the same strategies in the past, sometimes they work, yes, but sometimes if that strategy led you to failure, you won't try it again in a new avenue, in a new genre, in a new industry, in a new business, in a new relationship. And
looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Recently, a new client called me and started by saying, "Mr. Morgan, I really need your help, but I'm just a nobody." Those words stunned me, and I immediately called him back, and we're now helping him and his family after a terrible accident. I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. Everybody who comes to our firm at their time of need is a somebody. I grew up poor, but my grandmother was like a queen to us. At Morgan & Morgan, our goal is to level the playing field for you and your family at your time of need. The insurance company has unlimited money and resources. You need a firm who can fight them toe-to-toe. For right at 30 years, we have fought them in courtrooms throughout America. Our results speak for themselves. And always remember this: everybody is a somebody, and nobody is a nobody. Visit forthepeople.com to learn about our firm. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Injured? Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
And so being able to be flexible and being able to pivot and being able to be adaptable to exploration and discovery, instead of the perception like, oh, I know that I've tried that before, that's not going to work for me.
Right.
Because that's not the mentality that brought you that success in the first place. And a lot of times when people have been successful, especially when I work with people who are looking to get to that next level of success, especially when they've gotten to a level of comfort and success that feels really nice, well, then we run into the problem where people aren't taking the risks that they took initially to get to that level of success. And there's a perception and a belief, because what I work with is all the subconscious beliefs in my clients' minds, all the belief that, oh, the higher I fly, the farther I can fall. And so the fear of actually moving to that next level, because the fear or the belief of like, oh, I don't want to fall farther and lose this level of comfort that I've built up to to some degree. And so being able to recognize when to go to that next level, what strategies can you move to that next level, and how actually can you get out of that perception of safety or comfort, because typically safety or comfort is just an illusion of our egos to a degree. Right, and so if we look at how can we shake the frame that maybe it taking a little bit more risk or and not saying like putting everything on the line, mortgaging your house or anything, but
don't go crazy, right?
To take those courageous risks to maybe stand out a little bit more authentically and that's a big one, especially if you've built up a certain level of success with a certain persona, but maybe there's certain parts of yourself that you've been hiding and not actually fully communicating because you're scared, embarrassed, scared of being judged or rejected or whatnot. And actually, by embracing those pieces of you, you can go to a new level of visibility with even more aligned clients and even more aligned customers. Because if you're always hiding a part of yourself, then people are getting what they perceive to be the true version of you, and they think that's the real you, but that's not necessarily. But when your head hits the pillow at night, you're fully being you, or if you're backing down from yourself, or if you're abandoning yourself, you know at the end of the day.
But I like how you said though the fact that people get comfortable. And when we get comfortable, it's too hard to think about, oh, well, if I change this isn't going to work. Like you said, you have all kind of that negative attitude. You're worried about what it is that isn't going to work or how we're going to be able to move forward because you're comfortable. You've got everything you need. But then at the end of the day, a lot of times we find ourselves, once you've gotten to that comfortableness, that you get bored with it. It's like, what else can you do? What else can you make yourself, like you said, stand out or be able to offer something that you feel that'll be necessary? But how do you change that trajectory and within yourself to give it to others so that they can see that, oh my gosh, this isn't a one-trick pony. This person really does have more to offer we didn't even know about. And I think we all have gone through that. You've gone through it. I know I've definitely have gone through it on more than one occasion. But then that's how I realized that, if I want to grow, if I want more, I definitely have to step out of my comfort zone. And that's always the hardest thing to do.
Yeah. And people don't know who you really are unless you tell them. Like if people in your life, especially in your close personal relationships, if you feel like you're not being heard or not being seen as who you really are, then that's on you. And we need to take ownership of that because it's nobody else's job to communicate your own authentic expression of yourself, who you are, who you want to be, your goals, your dreams. If your partner or your husband or your business partner doesn't know where you want to take the vision of the company or where you want to go as a business owner, then that's on you. Yeah. I mean, I had one client, she told me 8 months into coaching that she wanted to build $1 million business by the time she was 30. And she was like, oh, I've never told my husband that. I was like, girl, we've been talking for 8 months.
And you're just now figuring that out?
You telling me this? I've known this for 8 months, and your husband, you've been married 5 years, doesn't know this? Like, that's the thing is sometimes we judge the people who we are closest to, thinking, oh, they're not going to, they're not going to want this for me, or no, oh, they're not going to see this, or no, oh, they're not going to believe in it. And while it is nobody else's job to believe in your vision but you, at the same time, we always want that acceptance, especially from those closest to us. But the beautiful thing was when she had that courageous conversation with her husband and shared that, he was over the moon supportive of her. He was like, how can I help you? How can we make this a reality? How can we do this in a way that aligns with, what we want for our future family? And I remember when she messaged me and she was like, oh my gosh, Kim, I judged him so harshly and had all these preconceived ideas about how he would respond, and they all just were not true. And so often when we allow ourselves to fully express who we are and fully express what it is that we want, that is when so often we will be more often embraced. Yeah, there may be a hater or two, but more often what I've seen is that people are embraced even more fully for who they are. And I mean, I always joke that my husband was my experiment in complete and utter brutal honesty. And it's worked so far 10 years in of just being able to have that foundation, because I know that I can share anything with him. And it's like ripping the Band-Aid off instead of leaving this gangrenous wound and then trying to pretend like it's not festering with infection until it's too late. You have to cut your arm off.
Right. But I love what you said. But the thing too, that you said that you had a foundation with him, and I think a lot of times that even though they're married, they love their partner and so forth, sometimes they miss that piece of that foundation. They thought it was built there, but anytime you can sit down and think that, for 8 months you're having this great conversation with you, and then realize that you haven't even told the most important person in your life that you need to tell. That's, I think, a lot of times is that, with the fear, that's that piece of foundation that just wasn't really completely built, or you're just thinking, like you said, constantly in the back of your mind that that person's not going to understand because, well, they're not in business, or they may think I'm crazy, or how are you going to get this accomplished? But it's constantly assuming is usually what gets everybody in trouble, right? So
yeah.
So
and we all know the acronym for assume. You make an ASS out of you and me.
Right, exactly.
And nobody likes to feel like they have like in essence, like a cuckold, or that they've had the wool pulled over.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Recently, a new client called me and started by saying, "Mr. Morgan, I really need your help, but I'm just a nobody." Those words stunned me, and I immediately called him back, and we're now helping him and his family after a terrible accident. I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. Everybody who comes to our firm at their time of need is a somebody. I grew up poor, but my grandmother was like a queen to us. At Morgan & Morgan, our goal is to level the playing field for you and your family at your time of need. The insurance company has unlimited money and resources. You need a firm who can fight them toe-to-toe. For right at 30 years, we have fought them in courtrooms throughout America. Our results speak for themselves. And always remember this: everybody is a somebody, and nobody is a nobody. Visit forthepeople.com to learn about our firm. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Injured? Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
And they thought they knew the person. Like, if I can't say we've all had that experience, but I know I definitely have, where I'm like, oh, I thought you were this one person, and then you're completely different than who I had thought you to be. But that's because of the lack of transparency and honesty. And so I see that with teams so often too, with my clients who have small teams. And when people are not being open and transparent with what they need from the leader, and the business has not provided for that framework of feedback for growth, then that's when people get into those water cooler conversations of, oh, so-and-so did this, and I'm not really a fan of this. And that can be incredibly detrimental to the culture of the business.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yes, and people talk, and then next thing you know, what was said just went completely out of control. So yeah, and that's
out
part
of context too.
I'm sorry, say that again.
And out of context too.
Exactly. And and that's a big part with, if you're going to be in business and you're having these companies, it's funny. I was reading something earlier today about the fact that, when you have happy employees, that means you have happy customers, because if you give people that flexibility and that feeling that they're part of everything, and that they realize that they can come to you, and they have, people laugh about that open door policy. That open door policy is probably the most important thing that any company could ever have, because I think that, if you don't have the ability to sit down and say, look, this is how I feel, this is what I think could be improved, or this is what we can do here or there. If you're not listening, how are you going to grow anything? So it's not just about growing with your customers. It's also about growing with the people that you're connected with, whether it's your employees, whether it's somebody personal in your life, friends, whoever. Like I said, the closest people that you're around are the people that you need to be able to have that feeling of, hey, I just want to talk to you about this, whether you accept it or not. At least if you're listening, you give them that option. I think everybody feels that they're, a part of what it is that you're trying to get accomplished. So,
yeah,
absolutely.
and being able to have those boundaries as well with the open door. So, also, because that's something that I work with so many of my clients is, they have those big open hearts and they have that big open door, and yet that can hit their productivity. So being also able to say, here's the times when it's open, and here's the times when it's closed productivity wise, and also for a feedback loop, having that foundation of candor and respectful trust that each person is going to give honest, explicit feedback as far as how they can improve, so that everyone is growing together.
Exactly. All right. Well, wow. We have definitely we could be talking all night, Kim. This is great conversation. It's like, oh, my time is already ending, but I have a couple more questions before we actually come finish. And I definitely want to close this out, but give some insight to anybody who's deciding that they want to go into business. What advice would you give somebody who said, hey, I'm in business, I need to do better, or either they're trying to go into business? I'm sure that, you can give them a lot of great information. What would you give advice on?
Oh, yeah. The first thing, most people get caught up when starting a business is on all the things, the logo, the color schemes, the website, especially women, because women, we can be very visual with how we want it to look and feel, and the Instagram handles and all that. The only thing you need for going into business, the only thing you need is cash flow. That is the only, you just need to make sales. And so the two things to focus on solely, at least for the first 2 years in business, is client and customer retention and client customer generation. That is it. Anything else, like I know businesses who are doing upwards 6 and 7 figures who didn't even build a website. So it depends on what your industry is, yes, and look at how can you focus on the one main thing. I like to think about the one main thing, like how you create a baby. Like there's only one way that you can create a baby.
Right, exactly.
There's you can do in vitro, but a sperm has got to meet an egg. And
no matter what, right.
No matter what. And in order to have that happen, your products and services have to meet your customers' cash. Like whether that's their credit cards, hardcore cash, a Venmo, a crypto, but your products and services have to meet your customers' money. That is the only thing that you need to be in business. The color scheme, I promise you, it'll come with time. Right.
Because you're going to probably change it a million times. I know I went through that process and still do. It's like, yeah, that's important, but it's not that important. I want to know how many contracts I got coming in, how much money is rolling in. And you're absolutely right. But, when you come into business, you get taught the opposite. Well, you need to have this and you need to have that. Like I was laughing earlier when you were talking about that, and when you started your business crown yourself, and you're like doing all the blogging and you're doing all these things, that everybody says you do, and you're like, but I didn't make a dime. And, because we put all of our effort and time into things that they're important, but it's not the most important thing. And so you're absolutely right. I love that advice. And I hope that the listeners gravitate to that and understand that if you don't have any clients, have any money coming through the table and you have no clients, it doesn't matter how beautiful your website is, or how many pictures you take, or how many posts that you put on Facebook, or whatever the case may be. It's great. But I think that a lot of times people feel like they have to copycat, what everybody else is doing. And that's one thing I have found within myself, that's the one thing I run away from. Like, I don't want to do this. Why does everybody feel like I have to do this? If I do it, it's because I want to share something to give to you, but not because I feel like that's going to make my business, the best business because I got 1 million followers. So I really don't believe that, that if you feel like that's the only way you can be successful, then you need to really rethink about who you are and why you're in business.
And followers does not equal dollars.
Thank you. Hello. Preach, Kimberly, tell them.
Lovely ego metrics. And that does not equal dollars, nor does that equal engagement. Like I used to get offered opportunities to go on lots of summits, that a lot of which have requirements for an email list of 5,000 when I first started my business. And I was doing $10,000 a month with a list of only 300 people. So there's the perception of, oh, I need to focus on list building or building my social media. And I'm like, no, the only thing you need to focus on is cash flow. It is your customers' cash meeting your products and services. That is it.
Yep, absolutely. Love it. Oh my goodness. Like I said, we could definitely keep talking about it, but before you go, and like I said, the advice is great. I just love this conversation we're having, but can you tell me, Kimberly, if you have anything going on that you may want to share, or just tell a little bit more about, your services that you provide. And then of course, how we can get a hold of you.
Yeah. If you like this conversation, if it ignited your fire and you're looking to free yourself from some self-limiting beliefs and make the income and the impact that you deserve, then just head on over to crownyourself.com, and I'd love to have a one-on-one high-performance consultation where I literally will break down the three pieces of our Power Profit plan that you can use to increase any business, no matter the industry. My clients range from all different industries, and I will break that down as well as give you 5 personalized subconscious success strategies that will take your business to the next level, whether we work together or not beyond that.
Wow. Love it. Oh my goodness. Again, thank you so much, Kimberly, for coming on tonight and spending some time with me. This has been such a joy. I just love great conversations. And, what you provide and bring to the table, we need to hear more of and hear more about, because like I said, you're into the situation of not conforming. And when we need to hear more of these type of stories where people need to stop conforming and feeling like, oh my gosh, if I don't follow this plan that, everybody says I have to follow, I'm not going to be a success. Well, we all know that's a bunch of BS. The world does not work that way, but you definitely need to find out who you are in order to be able to maneuver, to get out and do the things that you want to do in life. But you got to take some time to figure out who that is, who you want to be when you grow up. Right. So
yeah, you don't want to be another Stepfordpreneur.
Right.
Like there's enough Stepfordpreneurs with all the pink branding out there that you could ever want. So it really is about choosing who you want to be and how you can monetize that as a leader, and who you want to be as a leader for the business that you're building.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I couldn't have said that on a better note. Again, thank you so much for coming on and spending time with me, Kimberly. It has been such a pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me, Kimberly. It's been a joy to talk to a fellow Kimberly.
Absolutely.
Great name, by the way.
Yes, that's right. Hey, what can we say, right? But all right. So for everybody else, before we close that, like I said, I hope you all learned something about what it means to really transform yourself, and how do you actually stand out, and how do you stand out by less fear, but being fearlessly, right? So the key is, if you all are listening, truly listening, and you really want to have a conversation, please reach out to me at Kimberly at WSBILLC@gmail.com, and let's chat about your dreams. They don't have to be dreams. Let's turn those dreams into goals, make them reality. Let's figure out where you're at. If you want to be able to reach out to Kimberly, I can get you to the other Kimberly. So, there's 2 of us. So believe me, you'll be able to tell us apart. I can guarantee that part. But the key is that we both have what it takes to get to where you need to get to in life. Please, feel free to reach out. But, we're here to help you. We're here to help you understand what it means to really be in business. And it's not always about what's behind your name, the title. It's not about that. It's not about the colors, like Kimberly was saying, and the branding. There's so many other different things that come with being what it means to be a success. So anyway, again, you reach out to me at Kimberly at WSBILC@gmail.com. And of course, if you want more of your resource for success, we do accept monetary donations to support the podcast. And we can accept those through Cash App, PayPal, Good Pods, Tip Jar, or you can go directly to the website at www.WSBILC.com. And again, we would like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We'll be back next week with more amazing guests. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts. But until then, enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Terms and conditions apply.